Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome to week 2. So we're out of the gate. So yay for us. So you were able to get your JS case completed, and so now what you get to do is a bit of a reflective activity, and I've got a case that one of our former students completed for you to look through, and so it's not like the purpose of this is not for you to judge how this student did versus how you did and give a grade to that student and a grade to yourself. That's not the point of this from that type of critical viewpoint there. Really, the idea is to say, what I want you to realize with doing cases and then therefore working with folks for real is that there are lots of ways to do this. We are so conditioned that there's one right answer for everything. And there are for some, in the cases, of course, that there are, particularly in the first page or so, that there's, information that you glean from the case and you're able to complete it. And a lot of the cases is very reductionistic in that way. I mean, the worksheet, I should say. And purposefully so, because it's a process of critical thinking to be able to then ultimately delineate what the issues are, the primary issues. So normally, in a case or when you're working with an individual, you've got all of these factors, and one of your jobs is to figure out what are the primary factors that we should work on first, and then move to perhaps secondary and tertiary. Now, I know that probably isn't the way NBHWC wants you to see it. They want the individual to be able to say, this is what I want to do. And certainly that is a huge part of this. They, the client, the patient is the driver, they're the boss. And if there is something particular that they, want to work on first, then they drive the ship. That is always our first way forward. But at the same time, in the background, you should be using your critical thinking skills to be able to say, okay, here's what I'm hearing. I've got all of this information, looking at the risks of this particular individual. This is the path that I can see them going. And so in your mind, you should be able to reductionistically say, okay, these are the most important things that this person is at risk for, and then that becomes also part of your coaching. So for instance, if you have someone who says that, let's just pull something out of something crazy here, that my goal would be to just eat a paleo diet. Okay, so that might be the thing that the person comes in with and says, this is the way I want to go forward, and can we work on this from behavioral side and whatever pieces. And as you then are going through the case, maybe this, I'm totally making this up as we go here, but that this person has diabetes and they're overweight and they're sedentary and not sleeping well and a high stress job, and so what you're doing at the same time when you're gathering all of this information is, this is what the individual is saying, and this is then what their issues look like, right? So what you should be doing is prioritizing those. And, if you have some lab values in front of you, maybe you have blood pressure, maybe you have cholesterol, maybe you have blood glucose, maybe you have hemoglobin A1C, knowing that the individual is diabetic, you're going to particularly focus in on some of these lab values like hemoglobin A1C and some of the, cholesterol numbers like triglycerides and probably blood pressure, and be able to see from a biometric standpoint and an all-out risk for cardiovascular disease standpoint, where they sit. So if they're saying, well, my highest priority is to go to a paleo diet because for whatever XYZ and, reasons. And then you have looking at, maybe their food diary that you did, seeing that they have a very high sugar content, and that they say, well, I want to go to, this all, kind of meat thing, but, they eat maybe a high sugar and have a hemoglobin A1C, let's just pull a number out, that's 9.4. That is, that's okay, that's very high, and would be considered probably out of control. That in your mind, you should be saying this person needs some attention in this area too. So this is where the art of coaching comes in, and you'll have to then craft a way forward that is working with both their goals and the professional responsibility you have to try to match up their risks, and certainly work with their other healthcare providers as you're going through this. So the purpose of what I have always hoped to achieve with these cases is for you to be able to ultimately do that, is look at a profile of an individual with all the information that you at least can try to write down in a case anyway, and to say these are the priority issues. So it's a balance, right? It's this balance between the client and patient driving the ship and telling you what they really want to work on, and you looking at it from another angle also, to say that you've got some risks, and your risks may match up with your with the direction you want to go, or they may not. And so then you carefully move the individual towards a direction that is going to minimize their risk, and at the same time, getting to some of their personal goals. And so this is the purpose of all of the tools that we use in the lifestyle medicine toolbox there, at least the ones in that we have highlighted in the book anyway. And so there is a readiness and confidence questionnaire that we use that can help get to what the individual wants, and then you match that up with some other data that you have and help them move forward in that way. So I hope that makes sense. That's the purpose of the reductionism that is in the worksheet. So that we can look at it from a clinical view, and that yes, we always want to see a holistic side, the whole person piece of it, but we also need to pay attention to some of these other more critical thinking clinical aspects. And so it's a dance on both sides, and this is the art of coaching. And I think the art of coaching, doing coaching well, it's not, and this is Tom Lynn's opinion, not just about evoking a response from the individual and trying to get them to say what they want to do and what their goals are, and then you just design a smart goal for whatever they want. And that's it sounds maybe the tone of what I just said wasn't the right way, because that is obviously very important, but at the same time sometimes people don't know where their risks stand, and that's why in the worksheet we have the cardiovascular risk as being one tool that we can use, particularly that piece where it estimates their heart age, and that has always been a very helpful tool for us in our lifestyle medicine coaching program, because it gives the individual that we're working with some kind of clarity and understanding that all of the factors that go into their risk for having a cardiovascular event or having cardiovascular disease. And so anyway, so that's a little bit of the explanation, I hope anyway, behind the process and the worksheet and so forth. So back to this week. So your then assignment this week is simply to write a 2-page reflection paper based on how you feel like it went for you doing the JS case. Now the JS case is a pretty simple case. It doesn't have a lot of complexity in there for sure. And as I said in the last week, this is really a warm-up. to get you to start thinking about and developing a case study for yourself. So it's kind of to get back in the mode. That's the purpose of that case. And then, the reflection activity is to be able to look at it from another angle, to say, ooh, that was a great idea of maybe doing this. Or, you know what, I feel like the idea I had might be better for this solution. So there's a good balance within these cases, I feel like, of having, biometric and data specific that you glean from the case, but at the same time having some latitude and some creativity to be able to develop a program that might fit the profile of the individual. Now, this is still a case, right? So you, in real life, you sit with an individual and you put it together, the case together with the individual. And how I have always done it is, when I write the case, I'll do it, as far as suggested, fill out the worksheet separate from the individual, because it's too much work to do when you're sitting with them. But then I always do it in pencil. And then I always put a big eraser in the middle of the room. And then as we're reviewing potential interventions, lifestyle medicine interventions, as far as programming goes, it's very clear that all of this is modifiable. All of it is changeable, so that's what the purpose of the pencil and the eraser and sitting around a table with, in a collaborative kind of way. And so that's how we do it in our program here. And it seems to have worked well because it still goes back to the primary idea that this is a relationship between the individual and you and me, right? So this is, above everything, what we're trying to do is establish a relationship here and move forward in a long-term way as a relational care that we can work on this together through time. So that's as best we can kind of simulate this. We use case studies for that, and it would be great to have, real live things. We get there a little closer to that when in the 781 course, that elective that students come to campus for, that gets us a little bit closer to doing, coaching in that way, but it's still simulated because you're, working with us or each other or whatever. But anyway, so this is a good step, and many of you have been through that particular course, and as I said, this is a reminder, kind of getting back into the mode so that you can use your creativity to develop your own case. That's ultimately what we're after here in this part of the capstone. So that's probably more information. I thought this video would be 3 minutes long instead of 13 minutes long, but I hope it was helpful to kind of explain some of the background here. All right, so I'm looking forward to reading your reflection papers, and if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks.